Hello garden loves. So today's job is to fill these gaps with a few perennials that I've bought over the last couple of weeks, and also put a bit more colour in. So all the early summer flowering stuff and spring flowering stuff is finished, and I've just got odd bits coming out now, but we need more and we've got plenty of gaps to fill. So let's get everything laid out and I'll show you how we're going to go. So I'm starting to build up. We've got this massive space here, and I put some cosmos in last night, so that's going to fill this area, and a few zinnias, although they've already snapped this morning, they're not brilliant. Anyway, the cosmos are in there to give me height and instant colour around the water feature. But perennial wise, I'm going to build either side of this middle bit. If I step back, you can see this is the middle part of our border that goes along that way and goes along that way. And a lot of the sides are already filled because they're narrower, easier to fill. So this bit that I widened last year, I'm going to widen it a little bit there as well where that turf's dying off. I need to start filling this middle piece. So I'm going to build from either side and then slightly up into the middle. So like a little triangle, if you will. And then there's taller stuff at the back that I showed you on the last vlog. The buddleia I moved. The Verbena I showed you ages ago that I rescued from the garden centre. So that will give us a nice height and backdrop. But then I want to build up and down, and then have it at the back up and then slightly down at the front in the narrow parts. So when you're building a border, try and think of it as a bit of a triangle to build your height from the back and then bring it gradually down. So what I'm doing here is I've got some lovely grasses already in. Verbena that's self-seeded, which I quite like, it's coming up through and you can see through the waftiness. I put a Hellenium in the back, give us that height. There's some Delphiniums in, which will give us height once they get going for the summer, and it will come down to the grass, the sedum, a bit of height there, and then down to our Nepeta. And I'm going to move the salvia I put in the autumn that I bought from the Malvern show, Fashionista Pink I think this one's called. I'm going to move that to that space because it's going to be a little bit higher than the Nepeta once that's in her flops. And I can put the Nepeta in this area, and then I've got Orangium that's going in at the front. Now I might try and split this in the pot. I think there's a couple of plants in there, so I'm going to try and split it so that I can put some further up the border, that end, and then the other end as well to balance it all out. And that'll give me some nice low ground cover, and over time it will self-seed and spread, which will be lovely. Yes, I don't mind if it takes over. I am not bothered by that, but if you are bothered about things taking over, you just take out the seedlings you don't want and put them in the compost bin. It's that simple. So you can see I'm already building a bit of a shape there. Once that salvia's moved over there, we'll have a nice little sort of mini triangle coming down back from the back to the front with the euchre nice and low and the Orangium nice and low, and then I'm mirroring it slightly this side. Delphinium, which is brand new to the market. It's the first time I've seen it on sale this year. I think it might have been on sale last year. It's called Red Lark Delphinium. Label's saying it's only 40 centimetres, but that's already up above 60, 65. So I'm being a bit cautious with that one. I'm putting it in a sunny position, but it's still a little bit protected, so it doesn't get most of the sun comes into the middle bit here. And as it works around that tree, this corner has a little bit more shade for some of the day, but then it gets hot sun in the evening, late afternoon, which would be perfect for this Delphinium. So I'm going to plonk that in there next to the hydrangea for a bit of contrasting colour, and behind the Veronica that's already in. So once that's done, although it's coming into a second flush, the Delphinium will come up and take over from it. So that's early spring, mid-spring, then that will be early summer, midsummer, and then that will flower again in the autumn. So you can see I'm thinking about when things are flowering, and you should always do that with a border, so you've always got something that's taking over from the last thing, especially when it's in a little cluster together. So coming round, so the Nepeta here is also next to the GM I bought at the Malvern Spring Show, Scarlet Tempest, and I love that pop of orangey red next to the blue with the calming wafty grass, and then a little bit of the Verbena bonariensis itself seeded again, and then you can see through the grass from here the Origeron in the background, which then softens everything, and you can see that lovely flow that's going round the corner. Bit of height, bit of waft, bit of see-through, but it's all still nice and low towards the front, but not ridiculously low. And those colours just work really nicely together. And then coming over here, we all know I like a salvia. This was actually one that I had for a customer, and they cancelled one of the plants off the order, so I thought, well, let's use it in our own garden. So this is a lovely salvia. Salvia nemosa, just purple. Hasn't particularly got a special name. And I just love salvia for the colour. So this one only gets up to 30-40 centimetres, so not right at the front, but just off the front. And again, if I step back, you see that blue against my Euchera Fire Chief, and then the salvia that's finished. It's finished a bit early actually, that salvia. That'll be pink, so you've got the blue, which will take over from the pink. And then in the background, you've got the Nepeta coming through lovely as a light blue with a wafty grass in the background and a lovely dark sedum. So all nice colour tones working well together. So this is all for the front. And then I've got a lovely Hemeracalis I picked up yesterday whilst I was shopping for a client's garden. Blueberry candy, how stunning is that? Now this is a little bit taller, so this is up to 60 centimetres in height. And I'm not going to put them in the middle. And as my garden's quite sunny, they do like it. I had one that I bought last year from the Watermill Gardens, which is doing well at the other end. But I'm probably going to put one in around about there near to where that Delphinium is, or maybe the other side of those grasses in front of the phlox. And then one up that end, so then we're hit with two ends of scent with the phlox as well. So it's going to be a scented overload, hopefully, in our garden. I wish I'd bought a third, because I would probably put one in the middle where that spade is. But maybe I'll pick one up if I go back next week to my wholesaler. Anyway, so that is beautiful, isn't it? Look at that blueberry candy. Love that colour tone. And then that's going to give me flowers from sort of, well, now they've been flowering the last week, all the way to sort of late summertime with beautiful scent. And look, you can see how that already, with that in the backdrop, that beautiful blue salvia against the gorgeous cream. It's all about contrast for me in the garden. You can stick to any colour theme that you like. Originally I was just going to do pale mauves and pinks and blues, which I've sort of stuck to, but then I've got hits of like red, like the Fire Chief there, Euchera Fire Chief, and hits of Hellenium, because I think it just adds a little bit of depth and intensity. But of course you can find stuff that's just calming colours, so I could have just not put the Hellenium in, put more Delphiniums and lupins in instead in calming colours. But I quite like the fact that as we transition from the spring, which is all sort of blues and pinks, and midsummer to more blues and pinks and wafty grasses, to the autumn, which will then become more reds and yellows, because the Helleniums will keep going well into the autumn. And I've got a few more of those to put in as well, which I'll show you in a sec towards the back. And the hydrangea limelight will turn pink, so it will all become more autumnal shades in the autumn, which I quite like. So I'm trying to get lovely colours that match up with the season, but also give us a bit of depth and contrast as well, so it's not all just sort of wishy-washy, which can be lovely in its own right. But for us, I think we need quite a deep border, a bit of depth, which then really, as you can see already with that backdrop of the Euchera and the blue against this cream, is really popping. So they're going to work lovely together. So it's all about more for the front of the border for me today, and then a few Helleniums to go at the back, and the Cosmos, which is an annual that I've put into filling gaps for now, because it's cheap, cheerful, easy way of getting colour in, and they'll soon catch up. Although I'm a bit late, not everybody else, they'll catch up in the next couple of weeks now they're out. Give them a bit of feed and water. And then this will all be filled this year, and then next year I can add a few more plants into the middle that are perennials and shrubs when I've got a bit more budget, and I'll still fill in the gaps with Cosmos and Zinnia. So working with perennials for that lovely cottage garden feel, and adding in annuals can plug gaps whilst you're saving up to buy more plants, or to plug gaps that, you know, you just don't want to fill. You want to keep some Cosmos and Zinnia because I like them, so I'm planning to keep on doing that every year anyway, just maybe a little bit less of, because I'll have more shrubs and perennials to give it structure. And I am definitely going to be adding in some more evergreen shrubs, because we need that structure in the winter, which we haven't got a lot of other than a couple of buxus at the moment. We did have some Hebes, but last winter they took them in that bad weather we had. So yeah, we need a bit more structure in here as well, which I think is really important to know when you're building a cottage garden. A lot of them are perennial plants that fit into the cottage garden category. So then you tend to, all hydrangeas, which are lovely and go into the autumn, but then you tend to lose everything in the winter and there's no interest. then you've got a blank canvas and it's a bit boring and dull. So when I come to do the shrubs, which to be fair I might do in the autumn, I will show you what I'm going to put in here later in the autumn, so stay tuned and subscribe so you can keep up to date with my border updates as we go along. But right now we're focusing on summer colour and lower level and annuals, which is the cosmos I put in the other night, and it's going to look really good for midsummer to end of summer now. Right, I'm going to get planting and stop talking to you guys, and then I'll show you what I've done afterwards. So having done part of the front part of this middle border, or the middle of the border, I'm now working my way to the back with a few taller perennials. So this is Lithrum Robert, which is gorgeous, prolific flower. It's not a fussy plant, it doesn't mind sunshade, well drained, it doesn't mind a bit of drought, doesn't mind a bit of wet. It's fairly easy. And it's just lovely pink popper colour. This gets up to about 75 to 80 centimetres ish. So a nice, fairly tall one. So that's going to sit nicely just behind, well, there's a rose there, but I don't think it's going to do anything. I bought it in the sale. And sit nicely behind the steeper. And then there's some Veronica under there, so it will take over from the Veronica flowering wise. A bit of height. And then coming around, this is a little bit tall, this gets up to about a metre 20. Verbascum Plum Smoky, gorgeous colour Verbascum. I've got no Verbascums, never grown Verbascums in my own garden. Fantastic plant. Caterpillars do love them and will strip the leaves, but they tend to leave the flower stems alone. But you can pick them off if you're worried about it. But yeah, that's a nice tall plant. And again, likes a nice sunny position, well drained soil. So, which this is. Most of the plants, luckily in here, this is such a good position. It's nice and sunny. It does dry out a bit in really hot summers, like we have been having the last couple of years. So I have to just keep on top of watering in the mornings, and also mulching as well. But generally, they do quite well, because a lot of these cottage garden plants do like full sun, or quite a lot of sun and some shade. And they do quite nicely in my soil, which is fairly fertile, but can be a bit clayey and loamy in places, but it's a good mix of the two, so it's not too bad. So my Verbascum is going to go nicely at the back, and you can see the lovely Cotinus Royal Purple over there. So when that flower stem comes up, it's going to be a nice contrast of the lilac-y light blue, purple, sorry, against the gorgeous dark foliage there. And then just through there I've got Delphiniums in shades of blue and mauves and whites, which will also then tie this in. So around my lovely big water feature, that will be tied in with height, that will all mix lovely in together and then have a bit of contrast with the Cotinus. And then the buddleia at the back there, which is purple, and then the Hellenium, which is adding a new depth of colour, which is red, orange to red. So when they all do eventually catch up with each other next year, not this year, it's probably going to be, maybe get some in the autumn with the Delphiniums, but we'll see how they crack on. But next year we'll see and reap all the benefits of all the different contrasting colours. But this year they're all just going to settle in nicely together. And you can see around the corner, to balance up the little one, I've put another one in there. So when you see the other side, it's not directly centralised, my large border, because I put this on a slight slant so that you can see it from what will be the patio over there once all the building work's done. So it's on a slight slant, which makes it a bit skew, the border, and hard to sort of centralise stuff, but just to give it an idea and balance. So a lift from there and a lift from there to balance it up, and then I'm going to put another verbascum in there, again towards the back, and to marry up with this one. And there'll be another one, I think you can see it, there's the pot. So fairly close together for impact, and height, which is more in the middle. So what I was talking about, creating that pyramid, so more towards the back and the middle of the height, and then coming down to the front of the border, up and down, like a sort of 3D pyramid shape effectively, which gives you the nice tiered effect. And then in there I've got a Russian sage, which is only a dwarf one, so it only gets about 50-60 centimetres, so it's not at the back, it's covering up my plugs hopefully, and it's near sort of the middle to the back, so it won't get too tall, but tall enough to cover this up in the summer. And then add a nice little bit of contrast of steely blue colours with the plums and the bright pinks here. So that one comes out a little bit later. So I'm hoping for continual colour through the seasons. That's what the project is for this sort of cottage garden style planting that I'm doing. So I'm going to get those in now, and then we'll see how we're going.